Alrighty, so we'll start us on the straight. Now, before I start, I am still learning this car and track, so there is still some things, especially with the car, that I don't know. I've done 30 laps in this car and track combination. So some gear changes and other stuff might be a bit off to what the optimal stuff is, but I'm sure it'll be enough to give you an idea of what we're doing. Yeah. My braking zone in a 1 to start off with is it's one of these white lines. The best thing I use to find my white line is to either count them, so it's the third white line, or is to look at the rubber and see that's where a lot of the rubber starts, so then it's that next line, and it's about a car length before that. Now I'm probably a little bit too wide, so I'll get a bump on this outside curb right there. So stay a little bit further to the left so you don't get that bump, because that can unsettle the car a lot, especially depending on the car you have. Like the Porsche, it'll probably just pogo for 40 years if you're in the Porsche. But just be very aware of the bumps. It does that on a couple of corners, which I'll point out. Though a lot of the stuff we'll be talking about tonight will be track limits, and how we can move around all that stuff. But yeah, so braking at that line, which is the 100 board, or just before it anyway. I go down the first here, and then just stop it on the apex, and yeah, just drive out of it. A mental note I have here as well is to release the brake, and coast towards the apex. As for me, you always want to have more speed than you think, because then, as I've done here looking at the bottom right, I've come in at an angle with too much speed at this point, and then grabbed a little bit more brake just to get me onto the apex nicely, and then jumped on the throttle. So always come off, because this is such a long and big braking zone, you have the ability to come off the brake. Like I'm off the brake here, and then I'm too fast, so I grab a little bit more, slow it down a little bit, and drive out of it. Now that's definitely not my best turn 1. I've done better. There was one the other night where I got the perfect bounce where it perfectly rotated me around the corner, and I was literally flat through the whole corner, because that's just how nicely it rotated because of the bounce. Like there's so many things that can help it, but those are the fundamentals of it. Is just hit your braking marker. A mental note to have is to come off or bleed off the brake earlier than what you think, so you can A, carry that corner speed, and B, you can adjust if you need to as you get towards the corner. I'd say I probably turned in a little early here, so as you can see, I'm probably a bit narrow, so probably be another car width or so to the right here and get it turned in. So the car's pointing probably ideally that way when you come into the corner instead of this way. As you can see, it'll change the way you go about your turn 1. But yeah, obviously running all the way out. Don't hit the sausage curves on the right, as I'm sure a lot of people should know by now. They're very bouncy. Any sausage curves, they're basically a no-no, other than like 1. Now, for the run into this right, a lot of people I've seen on the server and just in general, they come all the way out to the left here to open up the corner. Well, that's good that you have the right idea. For this specific corner, we're trying to drive as little track as possible, because if we drive all the way out to the left, we're driving an extra 400 to 500 meters compared to the guys doing what I'm doing, because I'm not having to drive all the way out, then drive all the way back into the corner. I'm only coming out a little bit just to open it up, and then just cutting the corner. Careful on invalidations here. It is the white line, so make sure you keep your left-hand side tyres on the left-hand side of that white line. Track limits through this whole first sector is a pain, and a big thing for the races is going to be track limits, and a big thing for qualifying, especially for this week's ATR race being a one-lap qualifying as well. So err on the side of caution with track limits all through this section, but this section is just the white line for here. Flat in fourth for me, all the way out to the left, coming back to the right. I aim in between the emblem and the Circuit Americas sign, so like about there, and then slowly give it a little bit of turn until I see the apex, which is there. So I've seen the apex at this point, still holding flat. Hit my apex, still flat at this point, and I'll show you my track limit usage here. So the track limit is the white line, so make sure your right hand side tyres are on the right hand side of that white line, which I've done here. So kept it valid for the first part. This is probably the easiest part to get wrong, because if you get this part wrong, you're going to get the right back up here wrong, and then you're going to get the left wrong, and then you're going to get the right wrong again. So it's all about setting up your flow all the way back here. So if you hit this right, you'll get the next three right. So another point I look at as well, I'll go back a little bit, is I aim to have the end of my screen. So this is my view I drive in. So basically my dash, I want to have that over the top of this orange sausage. So you can see that lines up about to where my dash is, sort of. And then my car actually extends it out past that as if I'm going to drive over it. So when you look at it from this point, it looks like I'm 100% invalid. But this definitely isn't, as we can see with this camera. So there's still actually a fair bit of room there. Now, I know some people have been struggling with braking and stuff here. For me, the best thing I've found with racing here a few times is to get to your apex, then hit the brakes, go down a gear, and then go to the next corner. So by this point, I'm not really even thinking about the next corner until I've gotten over my apex, which I have by this point. And now I'm over my apex. Now looking at the bottom right with our brake meter down there, I'm over my curb. Now I'm hitting the brakes, I'm past the apex, hit the brakes, down one gear, and now I'm pointing and thinking about the next corner. Now I turn it in, I'll have a little bit of a slide, back on the throttle, won't even get to full. So not even full throttle, just 95% or so. Just get it straight over. Cut as much as you can. Oh, there you go. You can see I'm having a little bit of slide. Still using all the track as much as I can. Again, so the track limits here is the white line. So your left-hand side tyres need to be on the left-hand side of that white line. And then basically just shoot your right-hand side of the car at that sausage curb, or the orange curb there, as that, from my experience in the Beamer anyway, and other cars, doesn't bounce you. As you can see, it's very flat. Glide over that. Now I'm over that apex and doing the same thing over that apex, and now I'm hitting the brakes. Don't go down a gear for the Beamer. I think other cars might be the same, but for the Beamer, it's hold fourth here and then through the left, and then this next right part is when we go down a gear. Again, I reckon everyone should be going and looking at hot laps and see what those other guys do to see for their specific car for gears. Just because... Is it? Yeah. Okay. Every car's different. So if you want a specific car gear thing, go look at that, as that's what I even do to this day. But for me, fourth gear, and then pointing at the next apex. Okay, so this one is probably the most important for me, as this sets you up for the right. So on the brakes, hold gear. Some cars will be down gear. You can go down a gear here. I prefer to hold a gear. I'll show you how much I cut here. It is very borderline off memory. God, it's very borderline. So that is all I have, is that rear tire. That's not bad. So that whole time my one of my wheels stays on the white line or inside the white line. This is probably cutting it a little bit too fine, but yeah, that back tire stays on the white line the whole time. Now, I'd hope others aren't cutting any more or trying to cut any more than that, as that's as far as you can go. So keeping your right-hand side tires on the right-hand side of that white line. And yeah, the slide I have there is literally the only thing that keeps me there. Keeps me in track limits. But then same thing, get to the apex, grab the throttle, keep it as hard back to the left as you can. And then I have a little bit of a blend. Oh, that's where I go down to gear actually. So now, once I shift down at this point. So once I get to the curb here, now I'll go down a gear to help me with rotation, and instead of getting on the brake, I'll use the downshift as my brake, as the engine will slow me down. And then this little bit of brake here is all just the front engine trying to get it turned in, because, and especially with how I have this car set up, is you want to touch the brake. As you grind the brake, it's just going to give you that little bit of rotation, and it's just going to help me around the corner. That's a front engine thing. I think mid-engine cars like the Ferrari, McLaren and all that, I don't think they like that. Off memory, I don't think the McLaren does anyway. But if you're in a front engine and struggling with rotation through this part or any of the longer sweeping corners, just grab just the tiniest little bit of brake, and yeah, it'll help you around the corner. And then
Ferrari doesn't like brake going through there.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
It's I've gone off there heaps of times.
Yeah. And then my throttle point, I think, is just by feel. I guess you could go by where the grass starts. And then aiming to cut this again as much as you can without invalidating, so you can stay over to the right a bit more. Now this is where we start to get into the really tricky parts, as I've probably invalidated more times here than I have back there, if I'm honest, because I get too greedy or have a little bit of a slide and it ruins the lap or whatever. But let's have a look at it. So it comes at, like, if you look at it for 1 time speed, it comes at you pretty quickly. But anyway, let's go backwards. And now my braking point for this, oh, that's backwards still, is the start of that tyre wall. Is when I'll come off the brake, come off the throttle, which I have done, or starting to do there. So just after, just grab the tiniest bit of brake and just hold it through the whole time. That's all I've been doing, is you're trying to keep up as much minimum speed as you can here. And for me, just grinding that 10% of brake has done that for me. I don't know how much you can. I think it's the white line again here. So keeping your right hand side tires on the right hand side of the white line, and you should be okay. So cutting that as much as I can. As soon as I've hit the apex, I'm grabbing back on the throttle, keeping it back to the left, and braking at the end of this curb or just before the end of this curb, down to second. And now this point here is very, very important, to not have a slide and to keep your minimum speed up so that you can drive out of here and then get a very stable turn into this point. Because if you come out of here, you have not a long straight, but you have a straight all the way down to your next braking zone. So you need to come out of this section really well.
So easy to get sideways.
Yep, it is. So My main points, end of the curb, down a gear. I don't even get to full brake here, just to settle the car a little bit. But mainly using trail braking here helps get you the rotation you need to stay all the way to the right, as well as settle the car. Holding to the right as much as you can before a flick over. And then track limits here. Again, I'd guess white line, which the rest of the track is, so let's go with that. And then exiting out. As soon as we hit that curb is when I'm jumping on the throttle. Even before, actually no, this isn't, okay, actually, going back a little bit. This corner, you'll want to lift, and sometimes it's better to. But for us fast guys, we're holding throttle. So even that lift for me is probably too much. We're aiming to do this uphill flat. Or very, very close to it. But having a little half blend like that, not coming all the way off, but just coming about halfway, 3/4 off, to get you the stability, and to take off that little bit of speed so you can hold it on the exit. As the amount of times I've invalidated on the right hand side here when I've exited too wide is is a lot. Track limits again, white line. So just watch those left hand side tyres. And then
I've invalidated more laps than anything.
Yeah, and then this you want to cut as well, but just be careful that you don't cut too much. Again, white line. So just be careful of that. But that's just another little cheat where you can drive less track compared to those who don't use it. And yeah, now we head into the first Pyramid of Giza corner, as I like to call them, as it's got a huge pyramid on the apex. And then yeah, it's very, very tricky next two corners, and where a lot of people's time will be. So this first line in the green is my braking point. I go right before it disappears. So then by the time I've reacted to it, I'm pretty much bang on it, or just before it. Oh, there's still about a car before it. But from this, it's gone. Down, keeping it all the way to the right as late as I can. And once I reach I look at this sort of rubber to signify where I am, because I can't see the apex. As you want to turn in as late as you can so that the car's pointed as straight as possible. Even that's not great, but that's probably as good as I've had it. And then hitting the apex, feeding the throttle in very slowly, having a little bit of a slide on the exit, but that's okay. And then fighting the car to stay off those sausage curbs, as they're a killer for the speed down the straight. And then going up through the gears, down into Pyramid of Giza number 2. For my braking zone here, go for it. Rennie, were you saying something or no?
No, I wasn't saying nothing. I was just counting where you brake from to see if I'm braking the same spot roughly.
Yeah. So what I look for when I'm driving up to the corner is actually that red gazebo.
White lines on the track.
Yeah, and then once I see where the gazebo is, then that's when I look for the white line. So I have a reference to know which white line I am, and that's the gazebo.
I was counting once I hit the green section, it's the third white line that I hit.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. For me, it's easier to look at the red gazebo because it's a big red thing on the side of the track, and then just know where the white line is from there. But nonetheless, just basically smack bang on it for me. Same thing, staying all the way to the right, down the gears. You can turn in a little bit earlier here because the camber sort of does help you fall and slide into it a little bit. Getting as close as you can to that pyramid on the inside. I'm not as close as what I think there, but still quite close. Jumping on the throttle once you hit the apex, sliding out of it, and then as quick as you can, get back over to the left for the start of the hardest part on the track. So the white line here is my braking point. Hit the white line, down into second gear, holding it as wide as I can and getting the rotation done early, holding the brake all the way in to get that rotation. And then the point here, the general consensus here that I've been told from guys is to hold it as tight as you can, but not over slow to tighten it. So I'm fighting to keep the car as far as I can to the left, but I don't want to slow the car down any more than what I have. So I'm getting on the throttle. You'll see I'll have probably a decent slide. Oh no, I don't. Oh, that was pretty good.
I get a lot of understeer through that section. I get on it early and just push through the understeer to get.
Yeah, mid. I feel like this corner helps you if you can deal with oversteer, because by this point I'm using the throttle to help me turn around this corner, and actually get the rotation. So I think for the mid-engine guys, you need to do more of your rotation further back in the corner, so back here.
That's what I do. I rotate it early and just get on it and hold it.
Yep. So even whether you stay further out to the left, probably another half car width to the left here, so that you're more squared off at this point. And then you can hold it tighter, get on the power earlier, and it will probably save your tyres as well, seeing you don't have to use the rear tyres to rotate the car. And then just going up the gears and setting up for probably the most painful corner in the whole track, which is, I don't even know what this is called, but this sucks, this place. My brake zone here is it's probably about a car length or two away from the inside curb, so I'll probably start braking basically as soon as I hit play. Yep. So a fair way away from the apex. I'm pointing out in between these two signs, and then once I've hit the apex and I'm starting to turn in, but again, you want to hit as late of an apex as possible, so you're as straight as you can when you pull out of here. Again, I've got that 10% of brake on for the front engine just to get the car rotated. I go into second gear here. For this particular lap, I don't think it was the best idea, but that gives me a little bit more traction to drive out of the corner. The McLaren will be in second. Ferrari, I'd imagine you'd be first. But yeah.
I never tried coming out of there in second, to be honest.
It might be worth a go. Just helps the Beamer because it's got a fair amount of torque. But the biggest thing here is getting the car rotated early, getting to your apex. Don't hit pyramid of gears number 3. And drive out of the corner as best as you can. Stay off those, what are they called? Bloody sausage curbs. Back over to the left.
Sausages are the ones that I got the picture of.
Yeah, it's those ones and the ones at the first hairpin after the S's, where they can hurt you the most because they just launch you, especially in the Ferrari. But yeah. Last little bit of the track, fighting all the way to get back over the left to open up this very annoying long right, all the way out to the curb, into fourth gear, still flat, and then once I've hit sort of the back apex part here, so aiming for that part there, that's like the, it's hard to explain. You can sort of see that that's sort of the end of that half of the corner before it straightens out and goes back into another corner. This is so I don't do it properly in this lap specifically, but for me, it's just stay in fourth or stay in the gear I'm in, come off and then just graze the brake, as that helps me keep my momentum up, get the rotation I need to, and then slowly feed the power back in. As when you jump back on the power here, it's easier to spin by getting on the power than it is actually to go in too hot or to do something else, because you get too eager and the car's going uphill, you're loading the outside tyre, and then slamming the throttle back on here is just a recipe for disaster with those two factors. So hitting that sort of part of the track there. I'm off coasting. Shouldn't be down a gear, but had a little bit of a graze on the brake. Should still be in fourth here, really. And then once you get back on the throttle, by sort of, if you think you're too hot and coming in too quickly, the last point for you really to be making an adjustment should be before this marshal post on the right. The very top guys have to have a blend here anyway because they get on the power so early. So having a half lift here is not even a half, like a third lift is fine, just to settle the car a little bit. As you can see, I have just the tiniest little blend. I thought I was coming in a bit too hot to hold it tight.
Not all the way through there.
Yeah, you want to be flat, but it is okay to lift if you think you're gonna go wide. So
Once I hit the second apex, I'm flat from there all the way through until the second last corner.
Yeah, that's what you want to be. But if you are at the point where you're like, oh, I know this is fast, so I'm starting to understeer wide, this is the point where you want to make that correction. Instead of all the way down here where you're going to wash off speed here, rather than all the way back where you can use the momentum you have to go down towards the second last corner. Staying as close to the right as I can. It's okay to be out to the left. Now, this is a very tricky corner. So I stay in fourth all the way in. Can be in fifth. But I aim to go down into third in this corner. My braking point is to have my windscreen wiper. I know this is different for every car, but hitting the 50. This corner is very tricky for braking zones. I guess you could use the rubber. Again, you don't want to be doing that as you won't see it for fast or green tracks or wet or whatever. But I use my window wiper and the 50 meter board. Down a gear, point it straight at that orange curb. You want to aim to get your two wheels over that. I missed the apex slightly here as I have a little bit of understeer. But you do want to get...
You want to use that curb to hook you around, yeah?
Yeah, you do want to get your inside tyres into that corner, into that sausage curb. It'll help you around the corner. Just that little bit more. And then as soon as you come off that, grabbing on the throttle, obviously being careful to stay inside the white line. Not the white line. This one's the curb. So keeping your left-hand side tyres on the red and white curb. Though do be careful, this is another one of those curbs where you can get a really big bounce. I don't on this specific lap, but that little rumble strip on the other side where your car drives over. So that red and green bit, that can give you a big bump if you hit it wrong, and can throw the car in the wall. So do be careful about that. And then finally setting up into the last corner. It's nice and easy, just this little path. Halfway on that path, as I hit the brakes, get it slowed up, turned into the corner. And this corner is very deceptive with how much you need to slow up. So I'm still on the brake until basically I'm at the apex. So basically until this point to where I know that I'm gonna slow it up enough and get on the power basically straight away, which is by that point. And then again, stay off those sausage curbs and drive it all the way to the line for your lap. Now I'll play it through at full speed for you guys so you can get an idea of what it looks like at full speed. Yeah. All right. Well, that does us for a lap at COTA. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and I'll answer questions basically, now. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to go back over it.